Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning and welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Bill Allen. I'm sitting in for Winston Chester, who will be back tomorrow. Today is Tuesday, June the 20th, and I want to take a look at the weather situation today, brought to us as always by Haney Technical Center. We are looking at about a 70% chance of thunderstorms, pretty much the same all week, 40-50% chance. It's just that time of year. Highs a little bit better at 80 with a low of 74. Winds today are predicted to be east 10 to 15 miles an hour, and you can certainly bet that it's going to be a little higher than that. Good tides today. The high tide is at 8:12 a.m. with the low at 5:32 this afternoon. You got a movement of about 1.47 feet, so it's going to be good water. Sunrise at 5:40 and sunset at 7:47. Looking at our peak fishing times today, they are 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and on out of 4-star rating today is a 3-star. So if you could safely dodge some of these thunderstorms that are popping up and find your way out of the wind, should be really good this morning. Taking a look at the river readings, the Apalachicola at Bluntstown is at 6 feet, and it's in a steady, slow fall and should be Saturday somewhere, in the 4 to 4.5 foot area. Choctawhatchee at Caryville is currently 7 feet, and it's on a steady, slow fall, but with all the rain predicted, that's a lot more affected by the local rain. So, keep an eye on that. We have a great show lined up this morning with a couple of guests continuing to talk about some of the projects going on in St. Andrews Bay. We had Bill Dozier on and talked about the project or the process to open the old pass, which we got a lot of comments on. People really enjoyed getting caught up on that. And today we're going to talk about the oyster reef habitat restoration in St. Andrew Bay, with what's going on there and some of the more positive steps that are being taken. So we're going to take this break and then come back with our guest. Welcome back. I am pleased to be joined today by Katie and Becca. I'm going to let them do their own introductions, and then we're going to go into the oyster restoration that's going to be that is taking place right now. And I want to really thank you for coming on. I appreciate it very much. I really am trying to bring some of the positive news that's going on in our bay systems and the things that you guys are heavily involved in. So if you want to go ahead and make the introductions, and then we'll just jump into what the project is.
Sure. I'm Becca Nelson. I'm the Regional Public Information Director for FWC, so in the Northwest region, 16 counties from Escambia over to Jefferson.
And I'm Katie Conchar. I'm the Northwest Biologist for Marine Estuarine Habitat Restoration, and also cover about 13 counties.
So plenty to do, right? And a large area to do it in. So I had learned about this project, or a little bit about this project through another area, and was really interested in it. So if you guys could start with how this started and what it took to get started, and kind of where we go from here with the project.
Sure. So this is a project that we started over a decade ago in terms of the idea. Mm-hmm. But we received funding from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation in 2014 to restore over 3 acres of oyster reef habitat in West Bay, St. Andrew Bay. So that really started us on the move. Mm-hmm. We hit the ground running and installed about 14 reefs, almost an acre, in 2015. And then we followed up last year with the installation of another 3 acres.
Okay, great. The whole process, I know it probably took a great deal to get it passed to be able to do anything, in the bay these days. But what's the long-term goal here?
Good question. So I should also back up and give you a little bit of background on why we decided to put in the reefs. Because our ultimate goal really is to restore some of the seagrass that's been lost in the West Bay area. So a number of anthropogenic factors may have contributed to decline of seagrass in West Bay, one being the input of commercial wastewater for several years, starting in 1971, ending in 2011. There was also a commercial shrimp farming operation that had some nets across a portion of West Bay that may have caused some seagrass damage, as well as other water quality factors. So what we're hoping to do with these oysters is use their natural function to filter water, to improve water quality, and then ultimately restore the lost seagrass in this area.
And I noticed that, was it 3 or 4 years ago when we had I call it the 40 days and 40 nights of rain with that huge freshwater influx we had into the bay. It was amazing what it did to some of the seagrasses, in the shallow waters where I fish all the time. I mean, it went from being, grassy and spotted and beautiful out there to almost, one friend of mine said it looked like the surface of the moon. So, that was a scare for all of us. And we call it freshwater, but, probably a combination of everything coming together that killed that bag. But it does seem to be much better now. Is this how long will this project be maintained? Is it something that is going to go forward? Is it to a certain end, or?
Our funding stream has a certain timeline associated with it. Right now we're in our, second year of a 5-year grant.
Oh, okay.
So we have 5 years essentially of monitoring associated with all of the materials we've put in place. And that includes water quality monitoring, oyster monitoring, seagrass monitoring, as well as fish and other invertebrates in the system. So we will continue to follow the project in very much detail for that 5 years, and then I'm sure we'll kind of continue to track it after that.
Okay, that's fantastic. We're going to take a break here just a second, and when we come back, talk about, the effort that it took to get these beds in place and the areas that you selected, but also, the monitoring. And I believe you brought some pictures to show, so we can kind of see, what's going on from that point. So,
sure.
Jeff, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back for the rest. Okay, welcome back. We were just talking off air about, this is a project that covers 4 acres, but when you broke it down for me to say, it's almost 4 football fields of oysters that have been committed. It had to be a tremendous project. I mean, how do you select the areas, but then what did it take to actually physically build these reefs?
It took a lot of help.
Yeah.
We had over 300 volunteers.
Wow.
In the first year of this project. We have several project partners that are very supportive. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, UF IFAS Sea Grant, St. Andrew Bay Watch, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, forgetting one, Panama City Marine Institute. A lot of great partners that have helped us recruit volunteers and then come out to work on the project itself. So I can show you a few pictures.
Sure, love to see.
Basically, the reefs are built with recycled oyster shell. We used over 5,000 tons of this material, and these biodegradable coconut fiber oyster bags. We wanted to build these reefs without any input of plastic into the environment. So we went with this biodegradable material, which essentially holds that oyster shell material in place. And you can see some volunteers in these pictures helping us fill those bags,
Sure.
which was a lot of hard, difficult, hot work in the summer of 2015. So we got a lot of that done with support of the community, and then when our grant funding kicked in, we were able to really move a lot of material using a contractor as well.
That's a lot of oyster shells. That's amazing. So being a little slow, the bags you've got the oysters in, these are live mature, young oysters that you have in there? Or?
No, actually, all of this shell material is recycled, dry, cured in the sun shell material
Really?
that's been probably shucked from a restaurant, and then cleaned and put back into the bay. The material itself is really an ideal substrate for the juvenile oysters that are already in the system to settle on and then create their own reef.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, good,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So just another picture for you of how we built these reefs. As I said, we used biodegradable coconut fiber to create basically a wall around the outside of each reef. Each reef is about 2,300 square feet. So they're pretty big, about 100 feet long. And then the center was filled with this loose shell material. So what we have is a nice, fairly uneven surface to create habitat for invertebrate species, lots of fish, juvenile fish.
Sure.
Love to colonize this area.
Is there an average depth that you look for to put these in, or?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and just show you this one. This is the layout of the project, and what we have are all of these reefs kind of installed strategically along what was the historic boundary of seagrass in the St. Andrew Bay, in West Bay. This is the western shoreline of West Bay. So you can see in this image the seagrass coverage as of 2010 is much reduced compared to what it was in 1964.
Yes.
So what we're hoping with the strategic placement of these reefs is to, as I said, improve the water quality, and we're going to be watching seagrass recovery throughout that area.
Wow,
So,
that's amazing. The coverage in 10. Okay.
to answer your question,
Between 64 and 10, yeah, it's amazing.
it is. There was over 2,000 acres of seagrass lost in West Bay alone. And these reefs are about 5 feet in depth, between 4 and 6 feet. So they're completely subtidal. You can't see them when you go out to West Bay, but they are there and they are providing great habitat.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. That's an amazing picture. That's one you don't like to see, but an amazing picture nonetheless. Okay, let's go ahead.
Well, it's a good starting point, and I think what we're already seeing is some of the patches of seagrass recovering in this area. So we're going to continue to watch that. This is some of our results about 1 year since we started the project. All of these small kind of globules you see on there are juvenile oysters. We call them spat once they attach to the recycled oyster shell. Right now we have about 1,400 oysters per square meter. And that, if you think about the whole project, all 4 football fields full, that's over 20 million oysters.
Wow.
And those have all recruited on their own since we've installed this project.
That's amazing. I mean, to me, that's amazing. Is it along the lines of what you expected, or you didn't know what to expect?
We expected good recruitment, but the speed at which oysters recruited and the speed at which they've continued to grow has been really amazing to us.
And I'm looking here at 1+ billion gallons of water filtration from what you have today from these 20+ million.
That's right.
That's amazing. That cleans a lot of water. I mean, I know we have a lot of water in the bay. That cleans a lot of water. Have you seen any difference in the water quality test so far, or would that come a little bit later, you think?
That's something that we're continuing to analyze. We don't have that data ready to interpret it at this point, but we will soon. So we are hoping to see improvements. But there's a lot of variability in water quality throughout the season as well, so we have to really take a lot of information before we can see if there's improvement.
Right, and over a beginning 5-year project, I guess, then it'll become more. Your reports or your results will be, you can average those better from season to season and traffic and everything else.
Sure.
I'm guessing.
Yes.
So, okay, let's go.
All right, so these are some of the invertebrate species that we've found on our reef so far. Toadfish, not an invertebrate, but they do like to live in the crevices of these oyster reefs. We got common mantis shrimp, lots and lots of snapping shrimp, stone crab, mud crab, hermit crab, lots of species living in these areas. And these are some of the fish we found at this point. You'll notice that the pictures are a bit clouded, and that's due to really what it looks like in West Bay right
Sure.
now. So we've been using videos to kind of get more observations of what fish are utilizing this habitat without creating a human disturbance. So we have a lot of gray snapper and sand perch, I would say, are the most common, as well as pinfish.
That's fantastic. Are these? Are they like game cam? Do you have cameras set there all the time, or do you go out and make them?
They're not permanent cameras. We do this once a year at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When we measure the oyster growth, we also will look for resident fish.
Okay. All right. Great. Wonderful project with already some pretty outstanding results. We've got. We're at time. We have to take our last break, and then we'll be right back to wrap this up. Okay, and welcome back. We want to continue. There's a lot of information here. And one of the things that you just said to me that I had no idea of, a single oyster can filtrate how much water?
50 gallons a day.
50 gallons a day. That's absolutely amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I had no idea. And of course, I'm always concerned about the water quality there, you know, from the fishing aspect and from everything else. But let's continue with the information that you have.
Sure. So you were just asking, you know, is this area open for oyster harvesting? And
Right.
what we've just implemented is, well, actually about a year ago at this point, it's an executive order to restrict the project area from the harvest of oysters.
Right, I would think so.
So, you know, people can, we welcome folks to come in and fish. We like to talk to the anglers that are there about
Sure.
what they're seeing. But we would like it for folks to leave the oyster reefs themselves alone so we can continue to track their progress.
Oh yeah, I think that goes without saying, but you know, in yard they will eventually be buoyed and
Yes.
marked. That's
Exactly.
next project.
Yeah, so what this image shows is basically where the buoy markers will be. There'll be 22 can
okay.
buoys going up this summer.
Right. This
Probably this month or next month.
Again, a lot of work. Continue this, right? So, okay. Anything else that you brought about the project?
I can, you know, show you some photos.
Sure.
But the only other thing I wanted to mention, as I said before, this is a team effort. We have a lot of great partners. We have several staff stationed here in Panama City that are working on this project, and we're always taking volunteers, folks that are interested in just seeing what we're doing. If they want to help with water quality, measuring oysters, we do that in the fall. We do most of our monitoring in the fall.
Okay.
So we're always looking for people to come help.
You know, and I know there's groups here, you know, that are very active, you know, about the bay and that kind of thing. But if somebody did want to volunteer their time for any phase of this, how would you go about doing it?
Just contact basically Becca, myself, Jacob Berninger, who's the project manager here at the Panama City office, runs the volunteer program. So we'll put you in touch with him if anyone's interested.
And you don't have to know anything, right?
No.
You just can follow instructions, which can be a challenge. But
Yeah, and we'll ask a few questions about how comfortable folks are and what the best task might be for them
Right.
to help us with.
Right, that's fantastic. And I know a project of this size is just a huge undertaking. But you had mentioned to me as well that there are several projects like this going on in the state.
There are several projects like this. So the Marine and Estuarine Habitat Restoration Program at FWC is statewide. And we conserve and restore various habitats. We do a lot of living shoreline restoration.
Right.
It could be mangrove, it could be oyster reef, which is big in this area, coral reef work as well, seagrass restoration. We are often looking at water quality aspects. So we're working on all of those habitats, and each project is different depending on the area. Funding sources
Sure.
are also different, so this is one of the larger projects due to the funding source. But we have a lot going on. We've got a project in Franklin County looking at what we're hoping becomes an educational site for people to understand a little bit more about what a salt marsh, oyster reef, and dune area look like if you were to restore a living shoreline that way, and how those habitats function together.
That's fantastic. It's these projects, I'm sure, take forever to get to the point where they're actually implemented. I can't imagine what you'd have to go through to get funding to get that. But there's one thing that I do know is that it's tax supported, and it's supported by all you guys out there buying fishing licenses and permits and those kind of things. And so, I don't rarely hear anybody complaining about, buying fishing licenses, but, this is where a portion of that money anyway goes to support, the areas that we fish in and those kind of things. So it's really good to hear. You only hear bad stories about, federal money being wasted on, whatever. But with these kind of things where, this is being put directly back into, our communities and fisheries to, improve water quality, it's just, I love to hear these kind of stories, and I really appreciate the work that you guys do. You cover large areas, right? You have several counties that you guys are working in.
Right.
And Katie made a trip over from Tallahassee this morning, to be here on the show to talk about this, which I really appreciate. So, anything else that we need to know? Anything else that you want to say about this project? Other than volunteer, get in touch with them, because obviously this is a huge undertaking. Even the monitoring of the project now has to be, of utmost importance, but it's got to take a lot of manpower to cover that many oysters.
It does, and a lot of that manpower is volunteer-based.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, we have 2 staff members working on the project now. I cannot thank the community enough. We've had such support from Bay County schools, several local nonprofits, and major companies in this area have come out to support the project through volunteering, getting the word out on social
Right.
media. So it's just been a wonderful community, I think, support for this project.
Well, I want to thank both of you guys for coming in. It's
Thank
a
you.
wonderful project. Please volunteer. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.